So hello, welcome to the Dynamics Bootcamp. So first of all, I would like to thank the sponsors as well as the organizers who have arranged this wonderful bootcamps. So the Power Apps Bootcamp was very successful. We have learned many things, and now we are with the Dynamics 365 Bootcamp. Here, I'm going to present a session on the not much explored functionality in the Dynamics. So I know many of the people who worked for 10 years, 15 years, and most of them in the career, they have worked in Dynamics, but none of them have explored the virtual tables much. So with that, I would like to take a session on what exactly is the virtual table, and later whether can we extend that to the portals. So now it's Power Pages. Can we extend that to the portals or not? That is what we are going to see in this session. So me, it is like Kranti Gulapalli. I work for AIS. It's a wonderful company where we have work-life balance. And it has been 14 years. I'm in the IT industry. I'm like architect, developer, and a blogger. I play multiple roles in my company. And with the agenda for today, it is like we'll run through the prerequisites because it is not like the basic session where we are going to dig into the basics. It is like we are going to start from a couple of steps after the basics. And yeah, general understanding of whatever the concepts which are required for this session. And later we'll understand what are the virtual entities in the Dataverse and advantages for using the virtual entities. And we will also just explore what are the limitations of virtual entities. And I'll give an implementation overview and demo of working integration between the three things which we are going to learn in the second point. So the implementation overview would be in high level with respect to the time, but however, I'm going to record a video in detail about step by step of how we are going to configure and post it over the LinkedIn. So you can just keep things. So with respect to the prerequisites, yeah, so the first three, most of you are already aware. It is like we are going to touch base with Dataverse, we are going to play around with Power Apps, and we are going to play with Power Pages. So the logo, it is the new one for the Power Pages, which was earlier known as Power Apps Portals. And the virtual tables, the topic of this day, virtual tables, is like we can pull the data from external systems. So that is why the last item which we see over there is like Azure SQL DB. So at this point, yeah, you might not, a few of you might not have why we are using this, but after this session, you will be much more clear on why the last item is at that point. So the prerequisites, high level understanding of the above mentioned technologies, just a basic understanding of three things should be good. And next is a little bit understanding of plugin development. So the plugin development is the core concept of Dynamics 365. Little bit of experience. It is just like we already have the code in the docs.microsoft.com. We will just copy, paste, just do small modifications and again deploy it. So just a basic level should be sufficient, not an advanced. And later deploying the plugin, we are going to just play around with plugin registration tool. So these are the prerequisites. And yeah, with this, let's jump into the today's topic. So we are going to first play around with Dataverse, and most of the people, they might have an understanding like Dataverse is a kind of database, but yeah, it is not just another database. Yeah, it has the storage of the data, but there is a lot more into the Dataverse. So we all know that. And this is the famous diagram given from the Microsoft, which gives like a graphical representation of what exactly the Dataverse does. So on top of Dataverse, we have the API, and on the API, we have the security layer, logic layer, data storage, integration. So if most of the people, they have understanding that, okay, Dataverse, we can just store the data, we can pull into the forms of the data dynamics. Yeah, that is correct. But we are just exploring only few functionalities of Dataverse. So Dataverse is much more powerful than what we all use. And it is very tough to use all the features up to maximum extent until and unless we play around with the Dataverse with full capacity. So we are going to just play around with that integrations where we try to pull some data from external system into the Dataverse where the data is not stored in the Dataverse. That is what we are going to try to do. And next, Power Apps. So we have the model driven app and we have the Canvas apps. So today we are going to just play around with model driven app first so that we'll be creating one solution. We are going to create one model driven app in that we are trying to have some forms. Yeah, actually we are just going to a demo. If we have the time, we'll get into the deep. And the last one is the Power Pages. It is like Power Apps portals. And the model driven apps and Canvas apps are much more like an internal websites for the organizations where employees log in and explore the data. But if we want to give the data in the Dataverse to the public facing website, then we switch over to Power Pages. So this we can share it with the end users, like it would be a like normal website, not like an organized structured model driven app, but it is like a normal website which everyone would be liking the interface and they'll be using it. So today, yeah, we are just three terminologies should be fine, and the high level understanding of these three things should be fine to understand the things. Now, basic understanding of the model driven app developers is like, if we want to render data in model driven app, the data should reside in Dataverse. So this is a typical understanding, and most of the people might have done the same thing. So in order to render the data in model driven app, data should reside in Dataverse. Yes, so this is what people think, and even the portal developers, they also think in the same lines. Only data in Dataverse can be viewed in portals. So most of the Power Apps developers, it is like 100% with respect to portal and like 80% with respect to the model driven app. They have this understanding. But today, yeah, we are going to check like, is there any other way? Can we render data from external data sources into model driven app or Power Apps portals, the Power Pages? So first we will try to pull the data into model driven app, and the same data will be used on the Power Apps portals. Yes, so the concept which we are going to explore in the Dataverse is called as virtual tables. So till now, most of us might have created like few hundreds or even more tables in the Dataverse. But we might not have explored the small checkbox in the old interface where it says virtual table. And in the new interface, we have a drop down saying that it is a standard or a virtual table. So whenever we select an entity as a virtual table, it means that the data doesn't reside in Dataverse. It is just a table, and it plays like a proxy, like it will get the data from somewhere and it will send it whoever is requesting. That is it. It doesn't hold the data in the Dataverse. And with respect to the definition from Microsoft, this is what they say. It is like, yeah, virtual tables enable the integration of data residing in external systems. So whatever is the data residing in external systems, we can integrate that. And they say like by seamlessly representing that data as tables in Microsoft Dataverse. So in our Dataverse, we are going to have a table, and in that table, we are going to pull the data from external systems. So most of the time, whenever we get a requirement from the client saying that, OK, we have a third party system and we have some data over there which we need to get into the Dataverse or which we need to show in our Dynamics. The first thing all the developers which they suggest to the client is, yeah, we'll create a table and we will just do an integration, or we'll write a Power Apps flow which we are going to sync the two tables. Or if they are more comfortable with coding, they'll say that, OK, I'm going to write a console application which will pull the data from there to here. So they'll get into the thinking of a proper integration where they are going to pull the data from source and they are going to put the data into target. But here the problem is there is a replication of data. And again, the sync job needs to be implemented. And again, there would be a lot of performance issues and everything. So we just need to understand the actual requirement of the customer. If it is a simple data where we need to just see it in our application and not much major operations. So we are going to run through the limitations also. So if it is just like we need to see some data in our application, which has the actual data in their legacy external system. In that sense, yeah, we can just create a virtual table and we can just pull the data from there. What is the advantage? If there is any change in the data at the source, it would immediately reflect. So the end users will not come to us saying that, OK, did the sync job run, or I'm not seeing the actual data. And these are all the basic questions when we do a proper integration. So none of that questions would be there, and it would be like a live reflection in Dataverse or the external system, because our Dataverse is just playing like a proxy, and it would just display the data, whatever is there in the external system. And just maybe a year before or so, when we are working with virtual tables, we just had a read capability and we did not had the full CRUD operations. So create, read, update, delete. So earlier, yeah, we were just playing around to provide just a read-only information on the portal. But the recent update, maybe 6 months before, Microsoft had given us the full flexibility to perform CRUD operations. So with this update, it is like whenever you see a table in model-driven app, you will not even realize that, OK, this is a virtual table. So you can open the record, you can do the modifications, you can save the record. Everything would look like same until and unless a developer comes in and says that this is a virtual table. So with the recent update, yes, so it has very much in the line with respect to the current model driven app, other table UI, so that it doesn't look like a virtual table. It looks like a normal table in our system. And with the help of data providers, so by default here we have this OData, Azure, you have custom virtual table provider. So we are going to see how to create a data provider in this session. And before jumping into the actual demo, we are going to just check the advantages and limitations so that whenever we are having the demo, this will be in our mind. And a few of the questions might already be answered with the slides. Yeah, the first thing is less data duplication, as whatever we just discussed. It is like we will not have the data in the external system and will not have the data in our Dataverse. So there will be only one source of truth, that is the external source. Dataverse is just going to act like it is going to just render the data from external source. So there is no point of data duplication. And the use of Dataverse capacity cautiously, because Power Platform storage is costly. So we all know, and whoever have worked with large data sets, they might know like Power Platform storage costly, and we might find the alternatives of SharePoint or put the file documents into any other case. Yes, the storage is costly and do not bring everything into Dataverse. And not all client requirements will be migrated into Power Platform in a single release by rendering the data from legacy databases into model-driven app. So whenever we get a requirement from the client for the first time, the client might have like 10 to 12 systems, and they are going to start the Power Apps migration or the Power Apps transformation one by one. So whenever they are moving first system, we should not push them like, OK, moving only one table will not get everything. We need to again move the other legacy system and again other legacy system. We should not push them immediately. So if you want to get the related data from other legacy systems, yes. So the virtual tables is the thing which we need to explore. So the actual legacy system we can take up in the first release, and whatever are the other legacy systems, we can use virtual tables and try to get the data from the other tables, and step by step, yeah, we can make the entire Power Platform transformation. But yes, so we should not be in a hurry mode, and we can have a single source of truth for the data. If we do like everything at one go, few of the system data would be in the other system, and again we will have some replication of data, and again it would be a very hectic job in order to sort out the duplicates. And there could be few requirements from the client where they just want to single table to be exposed onto the model driven app, not the entire functionality. For example, we might have the users in our Azure AD, but client might be using some other Active Directory, and they might have some important attributes associated to the user, which are there in some other external system. So in such cases, yeah, we can just create a virtual table and pull that. And whenever we require, whenever they try to search the users, they are going to see that particular attributes in our system. So yeah, we might have many use cases where just a single table needs to be displayed in the model driven app from external system. And much more important than the advantages are limitations for the developers. Yes, so only organization owned tables are supported. So what it says is if we are trying to enable the field level security, no. So whenever we are trying to create a table, we have a drop down saying, is it a user owned or a organization owned? Yes, so whenever we create a tables which are organization owned, only those tables we can make them virtual tables. And field level security is not supported. This we need to keep in mind, so that yeah, different roles, if you want to play around with different columns, yeah, it would not work. And auditing and change tracking is not supported. So if you want to track, if you want to keep an audit history, which is there for all the out of the box entities, yeah, it would not work. Charts and dashboards are not supported for virtual tables. Yeah, this is the very much important thing. And we need to just put this point forward saying that, okay, charts and not dashboards are not supported. And yeah, they should be aware of the limitations. Clients should be aware of the limitations, because we are giving them advantage of pulling the data right away. So they should be acceptable for few limitations too. And virtual tables cannot be enabled for queries. Yeah, if you want to do some queries on top of the virtual tables, yeah, it is not possible. And a column on the virtual table cannot be calculated or roll-ups. So if you want to create a calculated field or a roll-up field on the virtual table, yeah, it is not possible. So there are other few limitations. I'm going to share these links, whatever are there on the presentations in the chat window, so that everyone can explore the full list of the limitations. But on a high level, which I see like which would be a hindrance whenever we are going with a virtual table, yes, these are the major things, and we should be very cautious whenever we play with virtual tables. And implementation overview. So the first thing we will just see what are the sections which are required for the implementation overview, and later we are going to just jump into one by one. And the basics, we are not going to do it. So the environment setup and configuration setup, these are the two things which we need. The first is like we need to create a model driven app, or we need going to have a trial instance or the actual instance. You just create a solution for this. You just create a model driven app. So entire model driven app setup. And next is we need to have a Power Apps portal created. So we need to provision our Power Apps portal. So this is like whether the data which we are putting into Dataverse or the model driven app, is it reflecting on the Power Apps portal too? So this is like a two level what we are going to see today. One is external database displayed on top of model driven app, which is again displayed on top of Power Apps portal. So again, yeah, we have created model driven app, we have created the Power Apps portal, then we need to have some data in the external database. So here, in order to just mimic, I have created one Azure SQL database, and from that I'm going to pull the data, but it could be any of the database, and we are going to use the C# plugin in order to connect to the database and pull. So it could be any of the database. If we are able to connect via C#, then we are good. That is it. So this is the environment setup, whatever we need, and configuration setup. Configuration in order to render the data in the virtual table. Yes, we need to set up few things so that it would help, and all the steps are detailed in the docs.microsoft.com, and we are just going to play around with that. So we need to create a plugin, and we need to register that plugin to our Dataverse. And we need to create the data service provider setup and configuration. Yeah, few of the terminology it might be confusing, but we are going to see step by step so that it would be very much clear for us. And next, we are going to do the portal web page configuration. So the first two steps are sufficient when we are planning to do with the model driven app. If we are trying to do it on the Power Apps portals or the Power Pages, then the third one is required. So yeah, I'm going to share this link too. So this entire implementation is there in the docs.microsoft.com, where there is a example of doing the CRUD operations. And this is explained only till model driven app, not to the portals. And yeah, so these are the things which we are going to see and explore whether it is going to work or not. So on a high level process flow, this is what we are going to do. So whenever we load any page on the model driven app, what exactly it does is we might have a model driven app. We might have a table which displays all records. Yeah, this is from the interface. We are good. But what exactly happens in the backend? Backend, the UI, whatever is there is the model driven app. It is going to query your Dataverse API saying, give me all the tickets you have based on the filter criteria or whatever it is. So it is going to render whatever the response it received from the Dataverse API. So that is the same thing. So we are going to retrieve all tickets from the Dataverse API. And in a normal case, our table would be a general table in the Dataverse, and it would immediately retrieve all the details. But when we are playing with virtual tables, okay, so it would check whether the table is a virtual or a normal table. If it is a normal table, yeah, the process ends at Dataverse itself. It is going to send because Dataverse has the data and it is like out of the box for that. It is going to send. But if the table is a virtual table, then it is going to check who is the data provider for this virtual table. So this is what we need to create. We need to create one data provider for a virtual table. And again, what exactly this data provider need to supply us. So when we see this particular UI, we have a requirement saying retrieve multiple records. And whenever we click the record, we are going to retrieve a single record. And we can create a new record, we can update a record, or we can delete a record. So there are different operations which we can perform on a table. So this data provider needs to give us capability to do all those things. So data provider has this event handlers saying that, OK, retrieve it is going to retrieve a single record. It is going to retrieve multiple. So in this example, we need multiple records. So it is going to give the flexibility to retrieve multiple, and we need to create record, and we need to update and delete. So this data provider needs this event handlers to be defined by the developer. Now, where we are going to define this event handlers makes this step. So we are going to create a D365 plugin where we are going to write each plugin for each of this step. And we are going to say, OK, whenever Dataverse asks you to retrieve multiple, make this query to the external database. In our demo, we are going to do a call to SQL Azure. So whenever we have a retrieve multiple request, it is like select all from tickets. That is the query which I am going to call to SQL Azure. And whenever it is create, this D365 plugin is going to call insert into tickets. Yeah, whatever the data which we are going to get from the form. So this is a high level process flow. If we are able to understand this single slide, we are good with the entire implementation. So I'm just going to run through again. So on the page load, whatever our virtual entity it is, the view is retrieve all tickets. And whenever we are trying to retrieve all tickets, it is going to hit in the backend the Dataverse API. Dataverse API is going to check whether our table is virtual or not. If it is a virtual table, it is going to ask you which is the data provider, and data provider needs to handle all these events. And for each of these events, we are going to create a plugin. And in this plugin, we will have the code to communicate with the SQL Azure or whatever it could be. It could be your Oracle or any other external storage. So this is the entire implementation overview. And with this, yeah, we are going to jump into demo. And to mimic, yeah, I have created one SQL Azure table. If you can see, yeah, this is a plain SQL. It has nothing to do with Dataverse. I have created one table which is called as case. And when I try to edit, yeah, I have two records in this case. So it has nothing to do with database. It is like a database.windows. It is a SQL Azure database. Next, plugin development and registration. So where could we find the code with respect to that is, yeah, I'll go docs.microsoft.com virtual tables CRUD. Yeah. So you need to just search docs.microsoft.com virtual table CRUD. Here you have the entire steps. So they have created one table with 3 columns. So and they have defined like V ticket and how to create a plugin. Everything is create or implemented or explained here. You need to create one project, add this NuGet packages, and just copy the code. Just hit copy, paste. These are the plugins you need to create, and this is how everything would be. I'm going to just jump over here, and this is the plugin C# library I created. I added those NuGet packages, and after that, nothing much. It is just plain copy paste of this. So I'm just going to copy and just paste it here, create a new CS file, paste it. You put your Dataverse server name, user ID, password, initial catalog. Yeah, you are done with the connection. Next, as discussed in the slide, yeah, we need to define the 6 plugins in order to support whatever the model driven app is providing us the details. So in order to create, here we can see it is because we are connecting to SQL. now we need to talk in terms of SQL query. So whenever we need to create, we need to call insert into this, and yeah, just copy, paste, and let's see how it is. So because I am playing with another table name called case, I have this fields: case ID, case number, title, description, and I just extended the same thing. The same thing I copy pasted. I extended the columns. Apart from that, yeah, I did nothing. And same thing, it is going to run. When we are trying to update, it is like update SQL query. And when we are trying to retrieve, it is select all from and retrieve multiple. Yes, so it is going to retrieve. Delete is simple, delete. So only this SQL command varies, and whatever is required for that, we are going to define it. So just copy paste, and based on our requirement, we are going to make the changes later. And we need to just create a SNK file, which is required for the plugins, build it, and that is it. You are almost done. So everything is there. Once you build it, you are going to get a DLL and use the plugin registration tool in order to register this assembly over the Dataverse environment. It would be, So here we are just going to register new assembly. Just browse to that assembly, click open. You are going to select all the plugins and click on registered selected plugins. After that, you are going to see this assembly displayed here. So now till this point, what we have done is we have created the plugin. That is it. So we have just defined this particular plugin. Now we need to wire up the plugin with data provider. So this wiring up is defined in creating a new data provider. So whenever we are trying to create a new data provider, it is going to ask like, OK, what is your plugin and what are all the events which you are wiring up? It is just like mapping one-to-one. So you can give your own provider name. So the case data provider or whatever it is, select your solution. And so whenever we try to select the assembly, it is going to give us the flexibility. OK, whenever there is a retrieve call to this data provider, from where I need to retrieve. OK, so I have already defined D365. That is what plugin is going to say. So we are going to map data provider with plugin steps. So just map everything, and that is it. You are done with your plugin and data provider. So now you have these three portions covered. So you have created the SQL, you have created the Dynamics plugin, and you have defined the data provider. Now, how do we wire up this data provider to the Dataverse? That is where we come to our interface. So when I say our, it is like, Power Apps. So just get into the solutions, try to create one solution, and try to create a new table. So let's see what exactly we need whenever we are trying to create a new table, stating it as a virtual table. OK, so I'm going to say this table is not a standard, but this is a virtual table. So if you see, it has enabled this choose data source. So we can give external name. It is just for our purpose. We can say cases. This is the important. And whatever the data provider which we created from the XRM toolbar or plugin registration tool, we just need to select here. So this is the mapping for the virtual table, and it is the link for Dataverse and a data provider. So we created the data provider using plugin registration tool. Now we are saying this table as case, and we are saying this table is not a normal table. It is a virtual table. It means the data is not going to reside in Dataverse. Okay, where exactly the data stays? The data stays in this external system. If you want to get from the external system, talk to this provider. That is what it says. So Dataverse is just going to talk to this particular data provider, and it is going to retrieve, render, update, whatever it wants. It has only single channel of communication, that is this case data provider. So once you create, you are going to have your table here. So and whatever the data provider we create, that those are going to add to our tables. So just if we see, okay, yeah, here is the case. And if you see, it is the virtual and the data source is the case data provider. Now we are good. We have created the table. We have the virtual table. Now the last thing is we need to have the UI on model driven app. So let's see. If you want to have a table on the model driven app, yeah, just jump into your model driven app, edit, add that onto the interface. So I hope, yeah, we all are good. We have done this many times. So yeah, we are editing a model driven app. We have added that particular entity over here. Now, yeah, and just going back. So now we are done. Now what we are going to view is data coming in from an external system. So here, this is a plain model driven app. Now when I go to cases, here, whatever you are seeing the data, if I would not have informed you that this is a virtual table, you will think that, okay, this is from Dataverse. Okay, so there are two records like cases, inverter not working, repair in progress. Yes, let's get into the SQL. So if you see here, you have two records, inverter not working, repair in progress. OK, yeah, I'm just refreshing it just to make sure. Yeah, that is it. Now just keep that there is no SQL. And if you are trying to edit this, yeah, this behavior is a normal model driven app. Yeah, repair in progress. Yeah, to update, done. So I have made some changes. I have saved it. So with respect to our behavior, there is nothing different. So let me again go back and execute. See, we have the updated here. So repair in progress 2 and hyphen update. So if we see, this is a very much important feature of the Dataverse, which pulls the data from a third-party database, and the UI says, OK, or UI feels like it is a native entity for this. So even you can just go around and delete. It is going to delete. That is it. Yep, the record is gone. If you want to create data from model driven app. Here. OK, I'm just hitting save and close. So all the CRUD operations are going to work. And the data is not in Dataverse. That is the important thing which we were planning to demonstrate. And this is with respect to the model driven app, whatever we discussed. And now the next level which we are going to explore. So most of you might already be aware of the portals. So if we go to our make.powerapps.com, you have various apps with respect to your environment. And yeah, so once we provision the portal, so into Go apps, just go create a blank app. In that, select as portals. You are going to have this particular Contoso Limited. So this is what I have given the name. It might look like a Microsoft naming. Yeah, whenever we go and edit this particular portal, what I have done is, I have already configured in order to make sure we save some time and have the overall feature demonstrated. So here we have created two things. One is cases. Whenever a case is there, so the portals is like a end user website which can be exposed out of our intranet, and it can be used for the end users. We can create a number of pages, and in each page we can drop our data from the Dataverse. We can share the lists, we can display the forms, and we can do whatever we want. So I just created a new page. If you want to have a look, I'll just create a test page. In that we are going to just put one list, and that list we are going to map to one of the pages. Test cases. So because cases already I have created, and I'll just leave around this. So this is a plain web page which has nothing in it. I'm going to drag one form, or first let's play with list. So it would ask me, OK, you are going to show a list. Which list you want to show it? I'll say cases, and if it is not already there, that is fine. If not, just select case. So this is the database table for us. And here, which view you want to render? I'll say all cases. And whenever you are displaying a grid on the end user web page, do you want to have ability to create a new record? Yes. So whenever I click on create, which form should I show? That is what it is asking. OK, then we are going to select one of the basic form. So these records we need to create in the portal management. And view details. OK, do you want to view the data on the portal for that record? Yes. In which form you are going to view? Same is the case with edit. And do you need feature to delete the record from the portal? So if you don't want to delete, then leave that. If you want to have edit view details, if you just want to have just view, forget about it and just give this. It is just going to display a list, and it is going to give you a capability to view only that particular record, not even create. So once you create, you are going to land into the page which we are going to just see. So this is the page which we are going to land. And here it is how it would be. So the cases list, and create. I think it's not there. I'm just going to enable. And that is it. Apart from this, there is no other configuration. I'm just going to save and run. So that should give us. OK. And if you want to just sync the changes from the portal to the Dataverse, just click on the sync configuration. And that is it. Whenever we try to browse the website, the data which is there in SQL, not Dataverse, is going to display into the portal. OK, I just hit the browse. And we are going to see a web page, which is a portal. Now we can see two records. OK, and data from MDA. This is what we just created, and inverter not working. So this data is not in Dataverse, and this data is in the SQL server. Let's try to directly modify here. What this use case is, the external system got modified from some other interface. OK. in portal. Okay, let me execute. Okay, so this is a use case where the data got updated in a third-party system. If we are going to refresh, yeah, ideally, there is a little bit cache associated with the portal. After that, yeah, it is going to reflect immediately. Maybe, yeah, we can just sync. It is going to clear the cache. And again, yeah, once we browse, it is going to give us the flexibility. So on a whole, yeah, this is the concept which I thought would be helpful for everyone to know. And let's complete this use case and open. Yeah, so the data to display in portal and the same operations, whatever we have done. So record created from Power Pages pp09 test. I'm creating a record from portal and now I'm jump over to SQL. Yes, we have the record created. So it is a real-time integration between the external system and the model-driven app and the Power Apps portals. So this use case can be used and most of the architectures might be changed and it could be a simple, and this would, yeah, skip many basic integrations. I don't say that complex integrations. Yeah, the basic integrations can be yeah, skipped using this feature. So this is what we have seen. So we have had the model driven app and it tried to retrieve from the data provider. It went over the plugins, it called the database and it retrieved. So one thing is display on the model driven app. The next thing we saw is display on the portal. So on summary, yeah, this is creating the Azure table, plugin development and registration, data provider and configuration, virtual table creation, and playing around with portal web page, creating a little bit of, yeah, configuration to display on the web page. So from the time perspective, I think we have 10 more minutes. If anyone has any queries, yeah, happy to discuss.
Well, thank you, Kranthi. Your sessions are always really well received. And I think this use case and pattern is a really one of those use cases that's very, very attractive. And it's one of those use cases that I think every Dynamics consultant would love to implement just because of all the moving parts and the actual the actual pattern itself of using virtual tables in portals. So I have to say, everyone really appreciated this session. Thank you for taking through the steps end to end and showing it working. That was fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Okay, there are quite a lot of questions actually in the chat. So let's begin with let's scroll up now to the next session. So let's scroll up. So I think if we begin with the first question from the Sandeep, who's asking, could you please let me know why you are not using Power Platform tools for this, like connectivity and create plugins?
I think we are using the plugins now.
Yep, Sandeep. So I'm not sure what you mean. I know there's different tools for developing PCF, and there's different ways of registering plugins. There's the standard plugin registration tool. So if you could further clarify, Sandy, that would be great. Okay, Jason is asking, is it possible to create a lookup column to a virtual table?
Yes, we can do.
Fantastic. Wow, Jason, there you have your answer. So Jason has also asked, how would the implementation process differ when connecting to an on-premise SQL instead of Azure SQL?
So it only differs with respect to the connection. Apart from that, everything would be same. And whenever we are playing around with the firewall would be the main thing to consider. If the on-premise is available for this particular connection, that should be fine. So your database, which is there on-premise, should be available to call from the Azure. So the firewall IP ports for the Azure should be open. That would work.
Fantastic. Okay. So Zarsesh Sanaz is asking, is there a limitation in portals when adding connectivity or custom controls to any of the entities in D365?
Can you repeat?
Is there a limitation in portals, aka
Okay.
Power Pages, when adding connectivity or custom controls to any of the entities in D365? So this is more just to do with Dataverse entity.
Yeah. So this is not a virtual entity. It is like a
Yes.
general entity. You're trying to
Yeah.
configure a custom control. It is like there are only few controls which are renders as expected on the Power Apps, Power Pages, not all the controls. So for example, rich text area might render, but again, there is a custom control which someone has put in the PCF gallery. You might not find it flexible to render on the Power Apps. So not all controls will render, only which are there by default with the out of the box things would render.
Thank you. Ankit is asking, is it possible to create a portal web page to do CRUD operations with third-party API to Prosereg SQL without interacting with Dataverse for data storage?
Yeah, this is a interesting one. So basically, portal is on top of Dataverse. So you cannot skip Dataverse. Dataverse is the medium for Power Pages or Power Apps portals in order to talk to any other third party. So even if we see our, here, so in order to talk to any of the third party, we need to go via Dataverse because the framework of Power Pages is sitting on top of Dataverse.
Fantastic. Okay. So Bernard is saying, nice use case. Thanks for the demo. Siraj is saying, can we enable the virtual tables for Dataverse search? And can they be used to build out of the box reports?
Yeah, the reporting is not there. Search we can do. That is what it is there with my experience. But yeah, report charts and dashboards will not work. And it was a part of one of the limitation too.
So Aditya is saying, can we edit sign-in pages in Power Portals?
Yeah, that is different topic from our discussion, but yeah, we can write little bit of JavaScript because some of the clients, for example, which I worked on, whenever we type in the strong or password, they need to have the indicator saying the ticks, whether it is like strong, weak, or it is complex. So that small JavaScripts we can put it, but the out of the box functionality we cannot change.
So Kashan is asking, we pulled the data from another system using retrieve multiple plugin. However, the primary key was integer based and not GUID based. So after pulling the data, we had to loop through and assign GUID sequentially to each record. But then when the record is clicked from the grid, it passes to the GUID to the retrieve plugin, but we couldn't pass it to the other system as there wasn't any GUID there. So we had to retrieve all the records again and reassign the GUID accordingly to the same logic and display only the matching record. Is there any better way to work with the data that doesn't have GUID-based primary key? Very good question from Kashan.
Yeah, so because our entities in the Dataverse plays around with the GUID. So we need to play with GUID in the external system. So yeah, if we want to have our own integer based, then we need to do a little bit of some configurations in the plugin so that there would be a mapping from our custom to the GUID. So that when with respect to the GUID, we are going to get the custom integer and we are going to do mapping here or on the other side. But that custom changes or custom implementation we need to do because Dynamics needs the GUID.
Correct. Okay. So Nikita is saying thank you for the awesome session. Natalia is enjoying that. So is Jason. He's happy with your answer. Sandeep is asking, can we customize the portal? Now, this again is not directly related to this topic. So I might skip that for now because we have a separate event on portals, Sandeep. So I'm going to skip your question for now. Shamim is asking, can we have SharePoint list as a virtual table?
Yes, we can have.
Fantastic. Okay. Praveen is saying very informative. Thank you. Prathiban is saying, can we are we able to use Azure tables / cold storage or any database apart from SQL to connect to virtual entity tables?
Yes, so until and unless we are able to query from our C#, so if we have the capability to create the record from the C#, yes, we are good to go with that particular external system.
Excellent. So Kashan is asking, can we integrate a shopping cart with Power Pages or integrate some payment gateway? I think that's not really part of this event.
Yes, but however, yeah, we can do that. Sure. That is there.
Cool. Okay. We've only got a few more minutes left, guys, but there's lots of questions. Wow. I have to say, Kranthi, you really have sparked everyone's creativity, interest, and, you know, sparked their interest and got their creative juices flowing because they're asking every type of question in your session here today. Okay. So Ankit has a follow-up question saying, regarding third-party API for PostgreSQL, can we not write JavaScript to call a third-party API and do a CRUD operation?
I'm not sure how we can do it from JavaScript because JavaScript is a client-side technology. So if we are talking about something like your Backbone or whatever the other JavaScript frameworks, server-side frameworks, it would not work because with respect to our architecture, it should run in a plugin. So yeah, plugin, we have only thing to play is C#.
Alina is asking, can we modify the save SQL script defined in the plugin to convert integer to GUID?
Integer to GUID. Yeah, we can do whatever we want the logic. So that is what we just discussed. If we want to get a GUID and again call an integer or get the integer from that record and do an external mapping, yes, we can do. It is all like, yeah, programmatic logic. It has nothing related to the architecture. That would be same. It is only the mapping where whenever we are retrieving, for example, here, whenever I am saying that select this particular case. So rather than putting the where condition GUID, here I am going to get integer based on GUID and pass that integer here. That is going to work. However, the underlying architecture would be same.
Okay, yep. Final question, guys. I know you got lots of questions. The final question by Bala is asking, what happens to the Dataverse virtual tables if the schema changes in the external database? Will the synchronization work?
If this mapping stays intact, it is going to work. If it is int and if we are going to send a string, it is going to fail. And if we log the plugin trace logs, we need to go there and validate.
Okay, guys, we are at the end of the hour. Great questions, great session. I think everyone really benefited and can see the art of the possible here, Kranthi. So thank you so much for what a fantastic session today.
Yep, thank you, Russ, and thank you everyone for sticking from starting to end. Yep, here are my blogs and LinkedIn.
So Kranthi, could you share that in the chat so that people can connect with you via the chat? Is that okay?
Sure, I'm going to put it over chat.
Thank you so much, Kranthi. Okay, fantastic.